we go. So, thinking about the world behind this text, right? And Gil Lozano talks a little bit about this. Now the people are coming out of slavery. In fact, Cyrus, the king of Persia, is the one that liberated them from slavery. Where were the elite enslaved? What was the empire? What was the space? Babylon, absolutely. So Cyrus, king of Persia, now the Persian empire is growing, right? And they come and they rout Babylon and they take over this area and they send the elites that are enslaved in Israel, they send them back to Palestine, back to Israel, and they're able to rebuild their temple and really their community, right? So what we see then in Isaiah is poetry, really, right? And it's a message of hope, right? It's a message of comfort. It's also a message, for Norbert Taylor, of resistance. So here's one of the texts you read for last night. Comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and and declare to her that her time of enslavement is over, that her iniquity is done. So Isaiah then is an attempt. Yeah. Hold on 1 second, you guys. Good. So Isaiah then is an attempt to deal with Israel's past, right? God, we were enslaved. Where was God in the midst of our enslavement, right? How could this happen to us? And to offer hope for their future now, right? So in a way, what you read in these texts is a praise to God, right? It's a recognition that God was with them all the time and that God saved them through Cyrus. What's interesting, right, is that King Cyrus was non-Israelite, right? So why is this interesting? That they now see King Cyrus, a non-Israelite, as their savior. Because what did they just do in the story of Isaiah? What did they just do to non-Israelites? According to the story of Joshua. They destroyed them. Right, so we have this a new contradiction that arises, right? In the story of Joshua, non-Israelites are killed, but in Isaiah, they view King Cyrus of Persia, a non-Israelite, as a savior figure, right? So why might these two groups be seen different, or this group versus Cyrus be seen differently by the people? Why would he be interpreted differently, possibly? Why wasn't he seen as wicked and evil? Yeah, Haley, exactly. Because he saved them, right? We do not see things as they are. We see things as we are, Anais Nin said. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. That's our quote for today. Because, right, they interpreted the people of Canaan as evil because they were inhabiting the land that they wanted to take, that they wanted to inhabit, right? And yet they saw Cyrus of Persia as a savior, and he wasn't wicked because he saved them, right? So here's another piece that we're going to talk about today. In fact, we're going to talk about this first. I'm going to ask you guys a more personal, kind of fun question, but I want to read this before we do. And when Yahweh has given you rest from your sorrow and trouble and from the hard enslavement that you were made to serve, you shall recite this song of scorn over the king of Babylon. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol. We're going to discuss this passage because it's often associated with Lucifer, right? So in this text, we not only then have, right, we not only have comfort and hope, right? We not only have inspiration, we also have this resistance literature, according to Taylor. So here's what I want to ask you guys, just on a personal level, right? If we were to see Israel as underdog, right? And tell this story that we don't know is factual or historical about how they leveled an entire city of people, right? And that God is so strong and that God is a warrior and that God can do anything, right? They're telling this amazing story, right? This motivated them. This inspired them. This brought them hope. So on a personal level, what motivates you? What do you do when you feel low? when you feel depressed, when you feel small, right? I know a bunch of you in this room are athletes and in this class are athletes, right? What do you do to get you out of that space of feeling down on yourself, right? What raises you up? What lifts you up? What gets you pumped? What gets you feeling strong, bold, and ready to perform? What do?
Listen to music.
You listen to music. Good. Have you got like a playlist, Peyton, before games? You listen to the same things every time? Yeah, you do. Good. And you get in the zone, right? That's what you do. Good. You listen to music. What does the music do for you, Peyton?
It like inspires me.
There you go. You're like,
yeah.
I know, dude. I was an athlete myself. Good. Okay. What else? Good. You listen to music. You got your playlist, Peyton playlist. Go. Boom. All right. What else do you do? What do you guys do to motivate you, to inspire you?
I like to imagine myself doing something good.
Boom. Okay, talk about it, Haley.
Like, if I'm worried about, like, in a game today, if I'm worried that I'm, like, if I'm not turn the ball over, I just imagine myself making the pass.
Yes. Good. Beautiful. So you replace that negative, that fear, right? The negative thought, you replace it with you actually successfully doing whatever the move is, whatever it is. Good. Yeah. Beautiful. Good. So you actually train your mind to think otherwise, to think toward positive. Love it. Good. What else? Yes, good, 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 good. So you talk to everybody, right? You find encouragement from your friends and your teammates. Good. They lift you up. They lift you up, right? Getting that good vibe going, those good relationships, very healthy. What else? What else? What else? When you feel like crap and you just, I mean, not even if you're an athlete, if you're anybody, right? And you don't have to play sports at all. What do you do to make you feel on? To get you out of that negative cycle. Come on, y'all. You guys have to have some sort of practices right now. I mean, seriously, especially because this time is so hard and it's been so, right? I mean, for so many of us, it's been a very depressing, isolating time. Tell me, somebody's got like a practice, or you've got, right? Is there somebody that you look up to, that you listen to, or something you read? Every single morning, I mean, not that you asked, but I'm just going to go ahead and share because nobody's talking, and you know that's what I'll do. Every single morning, I wake up around the same time and I meditate immediately. That's the first thing that I do. And I spend 25 minutes of meditation. And then I get out of bed, right? I eat, and then I go and I take a run. And that's what I do every single day. And every single day, what that does is that gets me out of the possibility of saying, oh, God, another day. Oh, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do that, right? It gets me centered, it gets me grounded, it gets me in the moment, and I am ready to go, right? And that run always gets my adrenaline pumping, right? It gets me the endorphins going. So what I would recommend for all of you, right? You don't need to do meditation, but I recommend, if you right now are struggling, first of all, you're always welcome to talk to me, always, right? Always welcome. You can email me, Rawson. I need a word of encouragement. I need to talk through something. Secondly, I encourage you to get a practice. Right? Some sort of spiritual practice, or just like positive affirmations for yourself, so that when you get in those dark spaces, you can pull yourself out, right? We cannot stay there. We cannot stay in that space, because we will not move. We won't move. And I know some of you guys struggle with this because you don't even want to get out of bed and come to class, right? One of the things that scares me about everybody being able to be online is that you don't even get out of your room, right? You used to have to come to class and like get your day going and see people, and as much as you were like, I'd rather just be in bed, right? And what it did was it gave you interactions with human beings, and that is always healthy for us. We need it because we're social creatures, right? So I want to encourage you, again, I'm not going to police this and keep checking in, but I want to encourage you to find a practice, So let's shift, because that's what I did. So here's the deal, you guys. In this text, we're going to go over all 4 essays today for sure, right? And I'm actually I'm going to push your writing assignment back till Saturday. It's not due tomorrow. But in this text, right, is a famous passage, right, that most people associate with a little somebody by the name of Lucifer. Does anybody know who Lucifer is? Anybody? Bueller.
He was like,
right.
The way I understand it is like Lucifer and God were like they're like brothers or like best friends or something.
Yes.
And then Lucifer decided to like try to take God's power and like be the most powerful. So then God was like, no, you do it.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay.
So where did you hear this story? Because you were shaking your head too. Where did you hear it?
I have no clue.
You have no clue. Where did you hear it? Your family told you. Your family actually told you. Did you hear it the same way?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the idea then is that Lucifer was. Does anybody know anything else about Lucifer? Have you heard anything else about Lucifer?
Look an angel.
Ah, there you go. There you go. So the idea then, these are angel wings, by the way. So the idea then is that Lucifer was an angel, right? And some say, right, as the myth or story goes, right, that he was God's favorite, right? So according to the legend or the story, right, Lucifer became proud and wanted to be higher than God. So in an attempt, right, so this is the sin of Lucifer, right, is often seen as pride, right, wanting to be like God. Who else wanted to be like God according to the Bible? Long time ago we read this. In fact, the very beginning of the semester we read this story. The snake said, to who? Yeah, me. Absolutely. Absolutely. The sin that is supposedly, right, suggested in Genesis 2 and 3, right, which is that second creation story, is that they wanted to be like God, right? And we can talk about this actually later, this idea and the fear behind that, right? That you do it, Haley, what?
Where does this story come from?
Exactly. I'm about to tell you.
I want to know, like, I've always tried to figure out why I even heard it.
Yeah, no, I'm about to tell you. And the interesting thing is it's become a bit of a legend within Christianity, but it's nowhere in the Bible. And I'm going to show you right now, and this is why this is like Satan part 2, because what we're trying to do, right, because Lucifer is often associated with Satan, right? So what we're trying to do, like everything else in this class, right, we're doing a lot of deconstructing of these stories that we've heard, and is this really in the Bible, right? Does the Bible say that sex before marriage is a sin? No. Does the Bible say that Satan rose up and then fell into, no. There are definitely, it's inferred in some places, but it's never Satan, right? It's never the devil. And I'll show you guys exactly what I mean. We're going to look at the text right now. But the idea, let's go back to this, right? The idea, and again, it's taken from other mythologies, appropriated by Christianity. The idea is that Lucifer wanted to be above God, and then God, and this is what Haley said, right? And then God cast Lucifer down to where? And as the story goes, right, he was cast down to hell or the underworld. In Hebrew, you guys, this is important, and we'll talk about this when we talk about Jonah, right? It's important to know that in Hebrew, actually, so in the Hebrew Bible, which is what Christianity comes out of, right? Sheol, right? The pit actually does not mean hell. This word, in fact, just means where all people go when they what? Hit the bucket. So there is not, to be clear, and I'll go over this again and I'll show you the text. There's not anything in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, it's important to differentiate too, that says that there is a heaven and a hell. In the Hebrew Bible, again, this is what the Abrahamic faith traditions are working with these kind of notions of these stories. Sheol is one place where all people go when they die. Again, I'll give you the support for that textually later. So for now, just follow me. So this, as the story goes, then Lucifer is cast down into hell or the underworld. Here's the biblical text behind it. You guys ready? This is it. Isaiah 14. I'm going to show you what is often used for the argument that Lucifer, right, this idea of Lucifer is in the Bible. And then we're going to look at the context, which you should have read for today. How you were fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn. How you were cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, here it is, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly on the heights of Zephon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Here's the pride, right? I want to be like God. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the depths of the pit. There is a passage in Ezekiel that says this exact, or not the exact same thing, but very close to this. Let's look right now. Does anybody remember reading this and who it was actually referencing for homework last night?
Was it Apple?
It's actually the king of Babylon. And the king of Babylon did what to the people of Israel, to the elite people of Israel, who would have been writing these texts because they were the elites? What did the king of Babylon do? Say it louder. Bingo. You guys, here's the deal. If we read the text in context, what we realize is that this text is not about a demonic figure at all. It's not about Satan. It's not even about Lucifer. It doesn't say Lucifer. It says, and this, well, let me read it exactly. When the Lord has given you rest from your pain and turmoil and the hard service with which you are made to serve. So this is, right, it's represented as a prophecy, but this was written after the people were released from slavery, right? You will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. So what are the people of Israel actually saying to the king of Babylon? What are they saying? What does this mean? What is their taunt to him? You thought you were bigger than our God? You know what's going to happen? God's going to bring you down. You're going to die. You're going to go to the depths of Sheol for what you've done. You thought you were so great that you could raise yourself up over God and the people of God, Israel, right? And what ends up happening is that Babylon was routed and the king was killed by the Persian conquest, right? So again, this text is written as if it's prophecy, right? But it was written after the fact, and it is not in reference to Satan. Let's go ahead and take a look then, you guys, at how this mythology or this idea of Lucifer developed, okay? Again, right, this goes back to the beginning of the semester. One of the questions that we asked, right, is why is there evil in the world? Where does it come from? And often people equate Lucifer or Satan with what? Evil, yeah, man, that's exactly right. Sorry, I know, I'm just like basically questions that I can totally.
So it's not like whenever you go to church and the preacher will talk
yes.
about like, oh, like everything in life is a battle between God and Satan. Like that's like, is that not in the Bible?
Okay, so here's the deal. Okay, how about this, Haley? Can you hold off on that one because we'll talk about that when we get to the New Testament.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because if you think about it, right? The Hebrew Bible is written after the 6th century BCE, right? So all that we have written after the 6th century BCE, so this is post-enslavement, right? These are all oral stories that are passed down and they're written down after, like as they're coming back, they're writing the stories, they're gonna rebuild the temple, right? The community's gonna grow, right? But, so if we think about it, over time, what happens, right, is that we begin to have the influence of pagan mythologies, right? As we'll see with this specifically, Canaanite mythology, I'm sorry, pagan, I should probably put like that. Canaanite mythology, then later Greek mythology, right? And so these ideas, right, that originally were not there, right, were not present in the theology of this people and the ideology of this people, right, in their teachings and even in their sacred texts. They begin to get infused with these other traditions, with other stories, with other ideas, right? And as is prone to happen, they're influenced by these other traditions. So Hillel is the word that's used for this son of dawn, right? For the king of Babylon, it represents the king of Babylon. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a brief sort of history lesson around the way in which people began to read these together. So again, right, it's to the king of Babylon, but it's evidence of pagan influence in the Bible. Why does this matter today when we're talking about Kanyako? Sorry, I'm just going to quickly connect it to one of the essays. Yes. This is what I'm trying to say to you right now, is that within the Christian tradition and our ideas of Satan and Lucifer and evil, right, they have been influenced by pagan traditions already. So often we argue over, you can't do yoga in church because yoga is like a Hindu practice or whatever, right? But the thing is, already the Bible has been influenced by pagan traditions. Already the Bible has been influenced by pagan traditions, and Christian ideology has been influenced, right? So this was actually a Canaanite myth. Atar was thrown down, right? Was thrown down, and he was seen to be, right, the shining one and the son of dawn. The name also recalls, and this is getting into Greek myth, right? Phaethon, son of Eos. Greek, right? The Hebrew Bible is translated in the Septuagint into Greek, right? So we already have Greek influences even as the Hebrew Bible is being translated, and the entire New Testament is written in Greek, right? Because the Roman Empire comes in. This is all stuff we'll discuss later because it's actually I need to be careful about what I'm doing with history right now, so as not to confuse you guys. So similar references are also, as I said, found in Ezekiel 28, right? Again, though, these things, the one especially in Ezekiel 28 is in reference to the king of Tyre, right? They're taunts for these empires that had oppressed the people of Israel. So there's also this association with the planet Venus, and that's only because, right, there was, like, astronomy was not a thing back then. I mean, they were curious about stars, and they would sort of have these hypotheses about the stars. So this was one of the hypotheses about Venus, right, and planets, obviously, right? Why does this planet look like this? Why is it here and then gone sometimes? Maybe that's Atar, maybe that is the son of Phaethon or son of Eos. So in Greco-Roman culture, the morning star then was often personified and considered a god, right? Not surprising, right? The idea of Lucifer being raised up as a god, and this then leads to the influence, right, on the Christian tradition, but between Lucifer and Satan, right? This idea that if there is an evil entity, right, that controls evil in the world, it must have been this one, right? Because what happens, right, is that this entity wants to be like God and then is thrown down by God, right? Rejected by God. So then, Haley, when we talk about this battle between good and evil, right? This is a great question. This is why you guys are taking this class, to question these things that you've been taught, right? Well, I was taught this, but where does it actually come from, and what's the history behind it, right? So important to think about the way in which then this is what happens, right? We have this dichotomy where it's God versus Satan, good versus evil. I mean, let's talk about it, right, for a second. Like, what are the things that you guys have been taught about Satan? I mean, you knew I was probably going to ask this question because this is what I do, right? I mean, I want to know, right? And anybody can weigh in on this at home or in class. What were you taught before we talk about whether or not you believe in the devil or whether this is a real entity, right? Obviously, evil, right? You're taught where Satan is associated with evil or Lucifer, right? What else? What else? What do you know about, or what were you taught about, or what do you believe about Satan?
These are like different forms.
Okay. Tell us more about that. Different forms. What do you mean?
He's the serpent in Genesis, but like he's found like other places throughout the Bible, but like he's not always a serpent.
So like a shapeshifter. He becomes different things in different contexts or circumstances. Okay. So, and this is another one, right, that I was taught too. While in Genesis, there's actually no reference at all to Satan or to the devil, right? The serpent, as we talked about and ancient cultures actually represent, I don't know why I always want to draw on when I talk about it, actually represented wisdom and transformation, right? New beginnings, it sheds its skin. So fascinating. There, good, great. Okay, what else? So different forms, the serpent in Genesis, etc. Evil. What else? What else were you taught about the devil, or do you believe about the devil or Satan?
People have always told me, like, I find this really interesting to think about, like, the way people try to explain it to me is that, and there's like the human world, and then there's like an inter-ish realm between that and heaven and hell. And like, it's like this realm of like God's angels and the devil's angels, like fighting against each other for all of humans on earth. And basically that's just like the entire, like any struggle in the world, like whenever like you're facing struggle, it's because the devil is like trying to get to you and make you turn against God, and then like you're supposed to not turn against God, and then if you, like, God has his angels protecting you, but like the devil's angels are always trying to get you to do bad stuff and like get you in the heart and stuff like that. And it makes it seem like a fantasy world a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because if you look at, like, I mean, there's a reference in Genesis 6 to this idea of a battle, like these giants came down on earth, and anyhow, it's really wild. But this idea, right, even in Luke 10, is there's like the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, yeah. Right? Good. So it's amazing how all of these sort of stories have expanded, right, to include this idea of a giant cosmic battle, right? Even Revelation, there's not really evidence that in Revelation that, you know, devils and angels are battling, but somehow, right, I was taught the same thing, Haley, right? There's a cosmic battle that plays out on earth, and that struggles come from the devil, right? You all heard the devil made me do it, right? There's a way in which, or maybe you haven't, but there's a way in which humans then evade responsibility when we believe that there is a devil behind it that is doing what? Come on, you guys haven't used the big T word. I'm so surprised nobody said this. What does the devil do? There it is. Yeah, right? What about the devil's the Greek tempter, right? Or the Greek manipulator, right? And it's like, so why do we believe this? I mean, where did these things come from? Who told you this stuff?
I just heard all this. I went to church with my friend, and they were just throwing all this at me. And I was like, well, this sounds like really cool, like fantasy world type stuff.
You know what I mean?
Or like they tried to explain it as like in one of the stories of the Bible, like somebody stole some sheep, and the way they like use all this symbolism, like the dude who climbed the fence and stole the sheep, that's the devil because he climbs the fence of your mind.
This is the one in the 99. Yeah. There's one sheep that's like, yes.
God, you have to, he like knocks on the door because you have free will, and like you have to let him into your heart, and like the devil just tries to steal your heart and like all that good stuff. So this is good because when we get to Jesus week, right, we'll start talking about this, right? The way that Jesus spoke in parables and how those parables have been interpreted and how the devil has been interpreted into them. All right, you know what's also weird? Evil, look at this. You put a D in front of it, look at what it is. You ever notice that? Oh, okay. Anyway, what do you think? What do you think? Is there anything else? Anything else that you were taught or that you learned about the devil or?
Somebody always told me that he's always behind you. Like he's waiting for you to mess up.
Yes, he's waiting to strike. Yes. And this is interesting because this kind of comes from Job, which we'll also be talking about, right? But he's always kind of waiting in the wing. He's just waiting for you for a moment of weakness to pounce, right? Okay, so, all right, just go with me. First of all, I understand, I believed in the devil for many years, right? Before I studied any of this stuff and realized that this was actually, the idea of the devil was constructed. Now, let me say this. Here's the deal. I'm about to use these words, and I want you to understand. So we can see that the idea of the devil is constructed, meaning that it developed over time, right? That just like a building, this idea was constructed, right? We can also see this as progressive revelation. What does that mean? What does it mean that something is progressive revelation? It's progressively revealed. Okay, good. All right, good talk. Okay, which means, right, the other argument, right, would be that no, they just didn't understand at that point who the devil was, and so they were gaining more knowledge on it, right? What I've just shared with you is the way in which the myth of the devil developed over time and was influenced by Pagan and by Canaanite and Greek mythology primarily. So, if the devil or Satan is not real, right? Why might people have created this idea? Tell me more.
I mean, we talked about like you said it earlier, like even like the devil made me do it, like blaming something that he's done the devil, so like that's the part of it.
So basically then it's a scapegoat, right? Well, the devil made me do it, right? You don't have to take full responsibility. I was influenced by the devil, or you don't have to think about things critically, or, right? Maybe you don't even have to feel guilty if the devil is here influencing. What else? Or a scapegoat. Why else? Why else might have, right? I mean, think about this, right? We've been thinking about etiologies, right? And explanations for things. What does the devil explain? If the devil is an etiology, if the idea of the devil explains something, what does the idea of the devil explain? What question? What existential question? Yeah, where does God come from? Right? What else? So it's a source for evil, right? Because if there's not a devil, then who would be the source for evil?
God.
Either humans or, you hear what I'm saying? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so to say that God is in, like God also does bad and God does good, it turns God into a different kind of character, or different kind of entity, or different kind of being, right? In some ways, right, having a devil preserves God's holiness and purity, right? I mean, I want you guys to think about the way in which your ideas about God possibly conflict with the ideas that we've been seeing in Joshua, for instance, right? According to Blashenko, and even in our reading, God in Joshua is what? Let's talk about this for a second. Who is God in Joshua? What does God do in Joshua?
Indiscriminate killer.
Yes, he's a killer, and indiscriminately, right? He's also biased. He only likes the people of Israel, right? He destroys things, and he dispossesses people's land, right? Is that the God that you believe in or that you've heard about? You hear what I'm saying? Right? So, in some ways, having a Satan preserves God's purity, like his pristine quality, right? His goodness or his perfection even, right? I mean, other things, right? God is love, God is light, God is truth. I mean, what are the things that we believe about God, right? And in what ways then does something go on? They can't hear. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so then thinking about that. Any other questions about this? Any other ideas on this one? I mean, is this surprising to anybody? Is it?
So.
Go ahead, Noah.
Thank you. So what you're saying is basically the devil is a scapegoat.
Well, what I'm saying is that that's a way to look at the devil.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you for sure. I'm saying if there isn't a devil, right? What might be the reason to create the idea of the devil? So getting you guys to think about it. I mean, the truth is, how do we explain evil if we don't have a Satan? I mean, honestly, what I know is that in the Hebrew Bible, right, there is no mention of an entity that is in control of all evil or the underworld that is called the devil or Satan. And we'll see when we go to Job, even that being that tests Job is not the devil. It's actually an aspect of God, right? And so we'll talk more about that. So I guess what I'm saying is that I guess it's more like, what do you think Satan is? What do you think the devil is? Do you believe, and maybe that's the question that I just asked, do you believe that there is a Satan? What do you guys think?
Dr. Rawson?
Yes, Scott.
What about that story in the Bible with I don't remember the names, but I think there was a prophet and he prayed to God for something. I don't remember. And it took about like 2 weeks before his prayers were answered, and the angel told him that don't think that he was forgotten. You know, God heard his prayer, but it took so long for it to get answers. On the way to like answer him, he had to fight off like the devil's angels. before he could.
Do you remember who that was, Sky? Do you remember what prophet it was or what the story is?
I have to ask my mom because she always tells me that story, and she says she knows who it was and where to find it in the Bible.
Yeah, ask her. I mean, also you could Google it, right? I mean, one of the biggest things that I want you guys to do too in this class is if you hear anything, you're like, Dr. Rawson said that the idea of Satan has developed over time. You guys, what I want you to do is even with the stuff that I teach you to think critically about it and go look it up, right? I mean, if you have any questions at all, I don't want you to just take what I say at face value. I want you to ask questions. I want you to search. And Sky, I would love, ask your mom, talk to her, do some research and come back and we'll talk more about it because I would love to know, because I'm not familiar with that story, but it absolutely could be there. I just, in my studies, I haven't come across that. Go ahead, Blake.
Could it like tie into like Saul and Paul and like him becoming calling himself?
Okay, talk about that.
I don't know, like he was just like bad before and then good. So like I don't know if that like I don't know if like Satan's mentioned like age. Well, obviously he's not mentioned.
No, he's not. But here's the thing though. What I want you guys to also think about is this. I'm talking about, so this becomes really interesting. Okay, so that's a great, okay, so Blake just asked about when Paul converted, the word is metanoia. He had a change of mind. So he was a Jew who was persecuting the people who followed Jesus. And then he had a vision on the road to Damascus and he became himself a follower of Jesus. So there is no mention of Satan then, but there is, right? So we're talking about the Hebrew Bible, right? So the Hebrew Bible then is the root of, right, what we have in the New Testament, because Jesus was a Jew, right? And everybody in the New Testament also Jews, right? Jesus was just kind of doing things in a new way. He was a new kind of teacher, which we'll get to. So here's the deal. Once we get to the New Testament, we do see mention of the devil and Satan. Now, so there is no devil in the Hebrew Bible, and Satan is in the Hebrew Bible is lowercase, because remember the word itself is Hebrew and means adversary, right? One who stands in front of or prevents the way, or right. So once we get to the New Testament, you guys, we do see a devil and Satan, and here is what happens. In between the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, we have tremendous influence from Greek culture. Tremendous influence, right? Hellenism is a real thing, right? The Greeks, right? And then the Roman Empire, right? Took over this entire area, right? They were in power. And so what happens then as a result, if the Greeks are influencing Jews, right? Because Jews were still a small group of people, right? Then what was also influencing Jewish culture? Bingo. Greek mythology. So friends, here's what I'm trying to say, is that we don't have an idea of an underworld in Judaism or what would become Christianity until there is Greek influence, and the Greek influence of Thanatos, right, and the Elysian fields. This is when we see the split between heaven and hell within the New Testament. I am going way too far right now. We really need to talk about the essays. Okay, is everybody, are we good? Any other questions? This is a lot of stuff in one day, and I've gone out of the Hebrew Bible into the New Testament. Okay, so we'll, listen, I can promise you guys we will come back to this conversation. We will continue to discuss it. I just realized that I don't have, okay, I know what I need to do. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So right now, you guys, I wanna jump to talk about the essays. And again, I mentioned this a little bit, right? When we look at King Cyrus in this text, right? He's seen as the Lord's anointed. He's a king of Persia. He was understood to be a benevolent ruler, right? Because he came in and set the people of Israel free and allowed them to go back, right? Though they were still subjects, the Israelites were allowed, right, to rebuild their community, their temple, and to worship their own gods, right? So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to put you guys in breakout groups right now. And we are going to discuss all 4 essays. I know it's a lot at one time, but as always, right, we're going to do 3 things. So we're going to go ahead and take on all 4. So what I want you to do then is I want you, as always, to talk about the world in front, right? What are their theses? And then what are those main points that they're using to argue their theses, right? So we'll go through De La Cruz, Lozano, Taylor and Johnson right now. I'm going to split you guys up into breakout rooms and we get on with it. Okay, I'll split you guys up in here. Give me 1 second. Awesome. All right, go for it. Okay, so let's do it this way. How about we do you guys want to do the all together thing again, or is it that? Yeah. All right, just do it. Bye.
Oh my goodness gracious, I'm so sorry. I was sure to switch it on.
And he talks about how
Isaiah can get the Now he talks about like in this first situation, like that, and then the oppression coming from the ears of the Lord, talks about there's judgment for those who come.
he says both sides of the defense. Separating Christianity from the paganism.
But also, like, you guys mentioned some people reject it. You can come on. Yeah.
That's what it is in the title. It's also like resistance and how the resistance can be different because that's how it's there. I was sort of out of resistance.
I'm sure
Isaiah as resistance. It says that Isaiah indicates the resistance against problems. But how God recognizes the oppression and it's not
It's basically saying that in the Indian caste system, there's like the low class or the outcast. And there's like that makes sense. And in the lower class, like we have like creatures stories and stuff and that. And it's like the guy, this Indian guy in the lower class, and he tried to show everybody the low class interpretation of the Christian stories that are used to oppress them. And then he related it a lot to in anti-atheistic leaders like the statement that embodies like a first person. And he said that is the same thing that God has been first by
so that's kind of more like perspective, almost as a perspective of like the oppressed to like how they can serve God.
And how like different perceptions of the sense so like no election intelligence.
You guys done? Yep. You're so fast. How do you do it? All right. Okay, are you guys ready to each of you take one essay to explain? Yes! You want to do it? Yeah! Okay, good. Okay, so you got Lozano. Okay, good. All right, well, okay, I can get someone at home to do it too, if you guys want. But let's go. So you're doing the Cruz or you're doing Lozano, right? Lozano? Okay. Yes. All right, does anybody want to do the Cruz? How you feel about it, Blake?
I can do a little bit of it.
You want to try? You want to go for it? Okay. Does anybody, let me ask, does anybody at home want to explain the De La Cruz essay? If not, Blake is going to go for it. Are you guys back? Hold on, let me see where everybody is. They're back? Okay. Guess what, Blake? Side your desk. Okay, I'm going to give you the board to do this. Are you guys comfortable with that? Okay, so here's the deal. Oh, jeez, I'm putting you on the spot. Okay, so here's the deal, right? This is what you guys should be able to do anyway. So what we're going to do is the world in front, you basically just say, here's where they're from, right? Then we're doing the thesis. This is what they're arguing. And then you're going to say, and these are the main points they're making. Superty duperty easy, right? Should be, hopefully. Like, you're going to rock this. I'm going to sit right in the front. And you can use whatever color you want. Okay. Without further ado, Blake! You're like, Rawson, what are you doing to me? Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Good. Yes. Oh, let me get my book. You got it. You got it. Perfect.
The thesis was mostly about, we talked about how part of it is about like over maintaining faith, like throughout like trials, but it's also about how like paganism has like reflected in traditions and how culture and religion are difficult to separate.
Ah, good. Okay, wonderful. So how do you want to write that? Because he's specifically he's talking about the context of the Philippines. So in the context of the Philippines. So why don't you just write down what you just said or something to the effect of that. Good. Okay, so here's what I want us to think about too in light of this. Did you guys pick this up? Also, the way in which this was a practice that was indigenous to the Philippines before Christianity came to the Philippines, right? So what's important is that he's now having us think about what what's in conflict, right? So we've got indigenous traditions, and now we have the Christianization of the Philippines, and so there now is some conflict between the two. How do we resolve that conflict, right? And so really the essay then gets at what's happening in the Philippines, right? What's happening on the ground. So talk to us about that, because that's where he's sort of tying in Isaiah 41. So what does he argue then? You're doing great. No, you really are, because it's not that easy to get this stuff.
I mean, at the end it says Isaiah 41 offers a word of peace, hope, and security for those who are faithful. So I think like he partially talks about how like you can kind of have both, like as long as you like respect both sides of it, like you can combine the two. Good.
So that's ultimately where he lands. So he talks about how, some people say this is wrong, some people say that it's okay, and so he ultimately then finds some sort of resolution. Good. So put that in whatever words you want. Because he says, right, for many Igorots, the question then becomes, how should they approach Kanyao? So the two arguments then are, right, and this is in that second to last paragraph, right, that after becoming a Christian, you shouldn't have anything to do with something that is deemed pagan. And others would say, absolutely, you can do this, right? On the other side, there are people who participate, they're Christians, and they do participate in Kanyao. Good. Wonderful. Good. So, nice work, Blake. Well done. You get an A++ for today. There we go. Hey, okay. So you guys, here's a question then that I think De La Cruz is asking us then, or is posing to us, right? Is what do we think about this, right? What do you guys think about time? And we won't answer all of these questions that I have up here, right? But so De La Cruz then is an ordained Assemblies of God minister in the Philippines. Is wrestling with this, right? Because some people would say that Kanyao, right, that these things that are deemed pagan because they're not Christian, right? Even the word pagan was created from a Christian dominant viewpoint or worldview, right? That it's not Christian, but it's pagan. So if it's not Christian, it's pagan, right? But what do you guys think? Can you utilize indigenous traditions or pagan traditions and still be a Christian? You think of any examples? Say it. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Or are you talking about me?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. I mean, I definitely think you can. I think there is a lot of convergent ideology when it comes to cultural practices of all kinds. People are kind of come to the same conclusions regardless of what your culture is. But at the same time, I also do think that there is, you do lose a level of sanctity when you do mix religions and whatnot like that, if that makes any sense.
What do you mean by sanctity? That some religion is sacred or pure, and if you have other influences, then it loses that status?
It's not that like one religion is more sacred than the other. It's more so that just kind of like how your ancestors did. I guess you kind of want to be consistent with what they were doing. I hope I don't sound like a purist or anything, but like.
Oh no, I mean I think it's a good question, right? Being consistent with what the ancestors did. It's difficult, right? Especially as we. Speaking of progressive revelation, as we become more and more aware, like for instance, of the patriarchal beginnings of Christianity and Judaism, right? Or the fact that enslavement was supported by Christians. So it's hard to say, like, is it a good idea to go back to their original traditions and practices when those traditions and practices were also really, I mean, they were in favor of only the elite males, and everybody else was seen as property, right? So I would say that yes and no, right? I mean, some of those traditions, in fact, were really harmful, right? But this is a good question though too, Noah, like what's wrong with indigenous traditions? And even the Christmas tree and the cross, I mean, these are pagan, the cross itself is a pagan symbol that is now associated with Christianity. I mean, even Christmas Day is not Jesus' birthday at all, right? I mean, it's a pagan holiday. It's a recognition of a change in the season, right? So how could we ever say, this is what I always wonder, right? That any tradition is ever truly pure. And what if the people in the Philippines already had their own religions and practices, and then they were Christianized? And so what we could say is, Kanyao is the pure religion, and Christianity is tainting their pure religion. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? I mean, for argument's sake, right?
Yeah,
if we do that thing where we flip the dominant script and we try to read from the other side, right? So these are good questions. I hear you, right? Like to maintain the purity of a religion. But what I would question is whether any religion was ever pure anyway. they've always already been influenced by each other. You know what I mean? Well, particularly Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the last three there. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there are tons of African religions. There are tons of that were just melded over time by Christian influence that don't really exist anymore in the same way that they do. And you can see
that's exactly right. In the process of colonization, you're exactly right. I mean, that to me is the travesty, honestly, right? Is the way that those cultural practices, and I mean, if you want to call them religions, were just completely demolished, right? Anyway, okay, listen, we got to move on. Noah, great questions. Are you ready? Let's do it. Okay, so Jason's gonna do Lozano for us, and you can pick whatever color you want. Go for it. Yay! Y'all, I'm so proud of you for doing this. You're up next.
I'm doing Johnson.
Oh, okay, we're doing Johnson. Oh, sorry, you have to wait till the end. Who's doing Taylor? Jake, how do you feel? Blake's like, I did it, man. I already did it. I did it.
Sure.
You want to? Yay! Okay, go for it. All right, just do it. Okay, Colombia. Good.
So he basically talked about how Isaiah is an example, is hope for people in Latin America that are flying from their homes, who have to immigrate and live their families and stuff.
Bingo. Yes. That's it. Done. So go ahead and write that down. So the way in which Isaiah then provides hope specifically for folks in Latin America, right? He's speaking about Colombia, right? I mean, he's speaking about Colombia and the displacing of people. So good, awesome. And it's good too, because he provides in that first paragraph, right? He's thinking about the world behind and what was happening in the biblical text. Beautiful. Okay, so what would you say then are some of the main points that he's making?
He talks about...
I love that you're doing this from memory, by the way. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's because I connect with the story.
Yes, good! Oh, okay.
It's because Hispanic too, so I understand. Like, I had to go through the same steps. Like, I had to flip from my country, and I understand. I understand how it feels, how God is, and yeah.
Talk to us about, okay, just go wherever you want to go. Where you're the teacher right
now. Okay, so he basically explains how people have to immigrate because of economic and security stuff, because it's not safe.
Yes.
So that's a point I made.
Absolutely, yep. Right, so good. So they escape basically, right? They escape for better economic opportunities is one of them, right? And then the other one is thinking about violence, right? You got it. You got it. Economic. You can say insecurities or economic. They seek better economic opportunities. Economic impoverishment, possibly.
Issues. I mean, these are big words.
You're like, Rawson, stop with the big words. Just talk like the people. What about problems? Okay, good. Good. They're seeking economic stability. Nice. I love the verbiage. Okay. So tell us then. So those are his main things, right? They're escaping from. So talk to us then about the situation, right? He gives statistics. He talks. You can also talk about your own experience. I mean, go for it.
Okay. So, from my experience, I know how it feels to leave your family behind. I know how hard it can be to people and how it can basically destroy a part of who you are.
Mm.
So I understand when he said that people need hope, because I needed hope too.
Yeah.
So I completely understand how the people from the biblical story felt.
Mm.
Okay? So he's basically trying to provide us with an idea of how, like, even without experiencing, how you will feel if that happens to you.
In that situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Anything else you want to share? It's important, I think, to think about this too, right? Is the way in which he says, and this is on page 109, right? He talks about the way that this actually was the result of European colonization, right? And so that's what created the problems to begin with, right? The corruption, right? Politically and economically, the issues, right? The exploitation of the land, right? Big business comes in and industry comes in, right? And so that actually has influenced these kind of conditions. Good, wonderful. Okay, good, great. Anything else you want to say? You got it? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Awesome. Yeah. Woo! Okay, so we have Taylor and Johnson. How are we doing? Okay, so you guys each have 5 minutes. Who wants to go first? Do it. All right, Peyton, you're on. Okay. Oh, I don't have to get up here. You just, yes. You guys are doing so great. I'm so proud of you. Oh, wait, let me pick this up while you're there. Okay.
I have like a totally like off-topic question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering like what your tattoo meant to you.
Oh Lord, that's a long. Yes, I would love to talk about it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I really like it.
Yes,
just like
good.
I wonder every single day like what. Like,
yes, but let's talk about that after we talk about this. Okay. Yes.
You get a lot of questions about that?
I do. I love tattoos, and this is a special one. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Not sure
So Taylor's from the U.S.
Good.
This is I basically just put the title, and that was it.
That is the thesis. Awesome. So specifically though, right, she's applying it to her own context, which is what? Who's her community, Pagan?
Well, I had that,
Her dad. No.
Her grandfather was the son of a slave.
Oh, that. Yes. So she's talking, yeah. Okay, good. Sorry, I didn't know where you were going. I was like, her dad. Yes. So, but her community, right, is she's African-American, right? Important to think about for the world in front, because she's specifically thinking about the way in which this is a resistance literature and helps her community, right? Good. So it's that practical application that we're talking about. How do you take these texts and utilize them within your own context?
Some of the main points I had was that Isaiah kind of dismissed Babylon's power and
yes.
the servants were like servants of Yahweh instead of Babylon.
Yes, that's good. Yes, that's great, right? So saying we're not your servants, right? This is that theological perspective, right? The shift in choosing not to see it this way, but to see it that way. So we are not servants of Babylon. We are, boom, servants of Yahweh, which does what for people? Yes, good. Yes, And they're empowered, right? Because they're not letting someone else dictate their identity. They're deciding their identity as in God. Okay.
And I had one sentence that I liked.
Tell us the sentence you liked, baby.
North American captives and their descendants embody biblical texts and their experiences inform Isaiah 47.
Yes, beautiful.
That
is a very important text. Absolutely. Good, good, good. And so she specifically then talks about the ways in which they utilized, right, their own African traditions as well as, right, these ideas about God and God choosing them, right? And all of these, then she says there are these various forms then of resistance. So do you want to share any of those? What did she say were different forms of resistance?
I don't know, is that the
she good. Yes, yes, that's right. You're good. Yes, that's the paragraph. So she talks about sermons, songs that promote divine deliverance, messages of contempt, sorrow songs, right? These are all this literature that they use from the Hebrew Bible, and using these forms then, right, was helpful because it encouraged them, right, in their own identity, and it gave them hope. Good. So she then talks about who? Do you remember? She talks about someone in particular who was a part of a resistance movement.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. Or anybody, I don't know. Okay, Nat Turner, yeah. So the Nat Turner Rebellion, really huge, right? What ends up happening is that a group of slaves decides to rebel, and they slaughter the master and his family. And that was a huge moment, right, in which slaves felt empowered, right, because they were able to rise up against their tormentor, against their oppressor, right? And so she utilized that then also sort of to talk about the way in which the Bible influenced him to do that, right? I mean, it was actually Isaiah that influenced. He believed that God was calling them to rise up against this system. Good, wonderful. Okay, so great. So then weapons of the weak, right? Though we feel weak, right, we can be empowered by these texts, and that's a lot of what this is. Great job, Paige. Thank you so much. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, which I want us to, before you, so again, right, I want us to just think about the ways in which, right, her community, like the community of Isaiah, was utilizing their ideas about God and in relation to themselves to empower themselves for hope and a new future and new possibilities, right? To create an alternate reality, if you will, right? Okay, good. Ready? Not to it. Yep. Okay, so Haley will now do Johnson. Go. I don't know why I really have to go up and do like an act kind of thing. Like.
Okay, so Johnson is from India.
Good.
The thesis is basically that the servant in Isaiah 53 and can embody, it can either one be Jesus, but that's like a different story. The main point is like it can serve as like a symbolism for the broken down Israelites and their community. And he relates it to the fact that there is a Hindu creation story that the king of Bali, he is actually like the embodiment of the lower class in India.
Awesome. Wonderful. And then there's a connection to Jesus. I think that's beautiful. You did a great job summing that up. Okay, good.
And then the
so,
main points
yes,
are that there was a lower caste saint named, I don't know how to say his name. It's like, I'm just gonna call him J. Fuel. And he reads a lot of, he is Hindu, he's from a lower class, and he reads Christian literature, but also Hindu literature. And he identifies the connection between the king of Bali and the way that the story has been used by the upper class and India to oppress the lower class, but when in reality, he embodies the lower class.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, right, thinking about interpretation and the ways that maybe dominant groups utilize certain myths or narratives to perpetuate oppression when they in fact should be read or could be read from the underside, where those who are disempowered or weak in fact have power. Beautiful. Good, good, good. Nice work, kiddo. Okay. Good. Yeah, wonderful. Anything else you want to point out or that anybody wants to say about this? Right. So ultimately then it becomes really, really important that we think about, right, that quote from Anais Nin at the very beginning. Remember, you guys, I said, right, we see things not as they are, we see things as we are, right? So there's a way in which even here, right, with the dominant class, with the upper caste, right, they would read it in some way so as to oppress those who are in the lower caste, where it could actually be read and should be read as this is a king of the people. He's lower class and he rises up as the suffering servant. Any questions from anybody? I'm so proud of you guys. You did a great job. Way to go. Yay. Okay, if you have no questions, then I'm gonna shift the writing assignment that we do Saturday. I'll be here if you have questions. We can also, if you want, oh, bye you guys. I'm gonna stop the recording right now. How do I turn that off?
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to stop the recording and then I'm going to. Okay. Okay.